far more likely situation is that we'll create the intelligence and have no idea whether it's conscious.
It'll be indistinguishable.
Yeah. It'll seem more conscious than us because it'll be more intelligent than us. I have no doubt, there is simply no doubt that intelligence is substrate independent. I mean, there's just no reason to think that there's something magical about biology with respect to what we mean by intelligence. I mean, what we have now is already so effectively intelligent that, you know, even if you're going to come at it in a piecemeal way, even if forget about trying to perfectly emulate human intelligence, let's just take the top 100 things we care about as you know, acts of cognition and intelligence. You know, each one of those can, you know, we already know it's like arithmetic. Yes, you can build a superhuman calculator, and all of us have one in our pockets right now. You know, it's just your smartphone is better at arithmetic than you will ever be, and just add up all of those capacities. We know they're all substrate independent, and we know recognizing faces and recognizing the gender of faces and recognizing voices and all of that is, you know, all of these human attributes are accomplished in silico now, right? So I think it's not going to be much longer before we have systems that pass the Turing test in all the ways that could matter to us. I mean, even if they seem weird in some other ways or just not quite human. I mean, they'll fail the Turing test the moment they pass it, because they'll pass it so spectacularly it'll be obvious they're not human. It's like it's already obvious that no human has instantaneous access to everything on the internet, right? So the fact that I can ask ChatGPT something and it can give me facts more comprehensively and in a more orderly way and faster than any person can, even if it's not perfect in other areas. The fact that I can say, you know, what are the causes of World War II? And it, within 5 seconds, can give me a mini essay on the causes of World War II that's better than, you know, any, you know, academic historian can accomplish in the same span of time. All right, it's already superhuman. I already know there's not a little man in the box, you know, typing, you know, his answer to me. So they will be, the moment they're general, they'll be not human level, but superhuman. And the moment we give them any kind of relational capacity that matters, the moment they become sensitive to our tone of voice and our facial expression, and the moment we're integrated with them, you know, you're piping your watch data or your Ring data to your AI assistant, so it's been tracking your heart rate and sleep cycles too, right? It's integrating all that information for you. Then you're going to be talking to a machine. You know, forget about a humanoid robot where it's, you know, going to make it seem like Westworld. I mean, even if it's just Siri on your phone, but just the next iteration of Siri that is, you know, essentially ChatGPT 5, you know, plus all of your health data, you're going to be in the presence of something that is more observant of your inner life than any person can be from the outside. So it's going to know you better than your spouse knows you on some level, right? Especially if it's reading your emails and reading your texts, and it's read everything you've ever published and listened to all, like in my case, you know, my wife hasn't listened to my podcasts, right? Like I've got 300 episodes of my podcast that my virtual assistant will have heard, right? My wife hasn't heard them, so she doesn't know what I was thinking about on for all those hours, right? I'm going to be in the presence of Siri that can say, Sam, you know, you definitely, you look tired, you sound tired, you're not here are 5 things I want you to pay attention to. You know, this is what you forgot you wanted to do today, but you sent that email to. It's like it will be. The moment the thing is responsive to you relationally, you are going to helplessly feel that you're in the presence of the smartest, most perceptive person you've ever met. And that's going to feel like being in the presence of consciousness, right? right? Especially if we don't. I mean, if we hamstring the thing to say at every moment, to remind us at every moment, listen, I'm just a dumb machine. You're not killing me when you turn me off. I'm not conscious. And nothing that's like to be me. You haven't solved the hard problem. You know, that's possible. But at a certain point, I don't know. I mean, like, again, for me, Westworld is unimaginable because in the presence of perfectly humanoid robots, which is to say, we're out of the uncanny valley. They no longer look weird. They look human, so their facial displays of emotion are not spooky. They're just like, they look human. If we ever get there, and I don't think there's any reason to think we won't. There's no way you could have a place like Westworld where you're treating them badly and, you know, raping them and killing them and like because you will feel like a psychopath. You will be viewed as a psychopath by other people. Like, you're like, if that's your idea of fun, if your idea of fun is to rape and kill Dolores, right? You're a rapist murderer, right? Like, you're like, that's like, and it doesn't matter that she's a robot, right? Because it's too compelling an illusion. The fact that you were able to give yourself over to the illusion with that kind of, you know, rapacity proves that there's something wrong with you, right? And so that, like, so Westworld I think is unthinkable, or at least like otherwise it would just function as a bug light for psychopaths. Yeah, so which is to say that once we're in the presence of anything like a perfectly compelling humanoid robot, it's going to be a very weird world, and we're not going to know, you know, very likely we're not going to know whether they're conscious, and yet we're going to helplessly relate to them as though they're people.
Going into a little bit of free will, so I want to actually take a moment to let everyone know that I'll link down in the description a longer podcast you did on your final thoughts on free will for people that want to dive deeper into this. But to share like a few minutes on like your consensus on your thoughts on free will, I think would be very valuable here, because it is one of those things that once you start to dive into and realize the illusory nature of, it can actually become very freeing. This inner control and arrogance that we kind of have that we're in charge of reality starts to diminish a little bit. It also can increase compassion that we have for all beings. And this awareness that we are not the first author of different causes that are happening, that are springing forth within us, like John Bon Jovi, is rather fascinating. It doesn't remove the fact that we have choice, that we have responsibility, but where it's originally coming from, we are not in a vacuum of sorts where we can actually choose that fully, to choose, right?
Yeah, so to say that free will is an illusion is really just the flip side of saying that the self is an illusion. I mean, what people mean by free will is that they are the true, the subject, the inner subject, the conscious experiencer of their experience, is the true author of thought and action and will, right? So like the you feel yourself to be, again, not the totality of your body, not your beliefs about your brain, but the subject, the one who can move his attention from, you can direct your attention to a part of your visual field, and then you can decide to get up and go make a cup of tea, like that. The one who can seize the reins of attention, the one who can decide to change a behavioral plan or to initiate one. It feels like something to be at the center of that causality, and that feeling is what we're calling I. I mean, that's this feeling of being a self. And when you penetrate that illusion, then you notice that everything is just happening all by itself. Like, and it does not nullify the difference between voluntary and involuntary action. I mean, there's still a difference between deciding you want to reach for a glass of water versus, inadvertently knocking the glass over, or having a tremor that you can't control, right? And you're not consciously initiating. Those are all differences. I mean, the one difference is, in my reaching for a glass of water, it's preceded by the thought that I want to take a drink of water, and the felt intention to reach. If my arm was just moving and I wasn't feeling any associated intention, well, then I would feel like I had alien hand syndrome. I mean, there are neurological conditions like this. I mean, that's what alien hand syndrome is, where the hand just starts behaving in ways where the inner subject doesn't feel any associated intention, and so it's like it's like a foreign arm, and it's as you can imagine, quite disconcerting. So getting rid of free will doesn't obviate any of those distinctions. It gets rid of this fundamental illusion that there's there's a subject in the driver's seat who can do the willing, who can do the desiring, who can initiate the next thought, as though who stands upstream of all these patterns that produce intentions and further actions. So, but again, the illusion is so powerful for people that they feel that there really is a mystery here, where it's so like they know that they have free will because they know that they are selves, right? And they know that they can decide to do one thing versus the other, and they know that it feels a certain way to do that. And so the buck really seems to stop here in my conscious sense of my own subjectivity and agency. And then they're told, okay, but no, actually in the dark, behind all that, there's this whole concatenation of causes for which you're totally unresponsible. I mean, you didn't pick your parents, you didn't pick your genes, you didn't pick all of the influences to the nervous system that got built on the basis of your genetic inheritance. So literally, like everything, the fact that you have a brain, the fact that you have a brain in precisely this conformity, the fact that it was, tuned by all of its collisions for all these years with, an environment, you did none of that, right? And yet that is all of that whole mechanism is 100% of the explanation for the next thing you do, right? So when I have to think of a rock star, and I think of John Bon Jovi, in what sense, like the conscious subject in me is just waiting to hear what comes out of the dark, right? It's like I pushed the deliver rock star name button, and the truth is, there's no place to stand where my authorship really is visible, because like upstream of that choice was, well, why was I looking for a rock star? I could have been thinking of something else. Like the category rock star was not something I consciously initiated. Everything is being promoted out of the dark on some level. I mean, you can't think a thought until you think it, right? Like there would be an infinite regress. You can't. At a certain point, something just emerges out of this mystery that's at your back, as a matter of consciousness. And we know as a matter of causality that it pushes all the way back to, again, your genome and every prior influence. So at what point can you claim to be responsible for all of that? And when you pay attention to what it's like to be you, you can notice that you don't even feel responsible for it. I mean, in some sense, you're always in the presence of a mystery. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't matter what you do and what you decide and what kind of person you are. I mean, like it's not like everyone gets off the hook by reason of insanity. It's like it's still possible to be ethical versus unethical, and to be compassionate versus malignantly selfish. I mean, all of these differences matter, because they have very different consequences in the world, and they link up to very different kinds of minds and motivations. And but at bottom, an insight into the illusoriness of free will does change a few things ethically. And one thing it changes is the basis for hating other people really does go away, because on some level you begin to view people as more analogous to forces of nature, or as wild animals or malfunctioning robots. I mean, people who are behaving badly on some level are doing precisely the only thing they could do in that moment. And the idea that they could have done otherwise or should have done otherwise, it's not that it's totally inadmissible. But when you begin saying you should have done otherwise, you could have done otherwise, what you're really admonishing a person about is not the past but the future. I mean, you're trying to, insofar as a person can be changed by your criticism and your argument and your reaction to their misbehavior, the reason to react in that way and to feel the validity of reacting in that way is to change them for the future. You can't go back into the past and change what they did. So if you're and this is very clear with raising kids. Like, you want kids to grow up to be honest, compassionate, well-integrated members of society. So yeah, they don't start out that way, and so you have to keep saying, okay, you shouldn't have done that. Next time, do this. But you're not imagining at each stage along the way that they could really be different than they were at that stage. And ultimately, that's true for even quintessentially evil adults, right? Like, you're just the mustache twirling psychopath who murdered lots of people because he likes to murder people. Well, okay, you still want to put that person in prison because you want to keep everyone safe from him, but you have to recognize that on some level, once you get rid of the illusion of free will, you recognize that person is basically analogous to a great white shark or a grizzly bear or a tiger or any other system that is intrinsically dangerous to be close to.
Yeah.
Like, he's not available to argument. He's fundamentally incorrigible, just as a tiger would be, a wild tiger would be. So it doesn't mean you can't try to avoid that person, put that person in prison, find a cure for that person. If we ever get a cure for psychopathy, we would use that. But it's not that it doesn't mean it's not a problem, but it's not a problem of free will being misused, right? Like, no one picked even if you think people have souls, right? Like, no one picked their soul. No, there's no psychopath walking around with a psychopathic soul who's responsible for having made his soul psychopathic, right? It's like he's unlucky. He got a bad soul, right? If souls exist. If without souls, he got bad genes and a bad environment and a bad, contingent neurology. So
it creates so much compassion on one hand as well, because you look at someone like Hitler or the mustache twirling sociopath, psychopath, murderer, and if you spoke in your book Free Will, you give these examples. If you then discovered, on the other hand, that there was a brain tumor pushing upon someone's amygdala, right, that would completely change how you view them. But if it's essentially that all the way down, right? Yeah,
and you can just, without even referencing the neurology of it, just look at the timeline of somebody's life. It's like, you take Hitler. Okay, well, Hitler is the quintessentially evil person who everyone should just kill, right? It's like we wish that the plots against Hitler, trying to assassinate him, had actually worked, right? So and they were completely justified, right? But at what point in his life would it have been justified to kill Hitler? I mean, killing the 25-year-old Hitler before he has done anything especially egregious? Well, he's going to become the 40-year-old Hitler who's just awful. You might want to stop that. But I mean, I think even Louis C.K. has a joke about this. Like, do you go back and kill Hitler in his crib? Like, like
baby Hitler?
You're going to kill a baby? Like, you're really going to kill a baby? Like, it's a baby. Like, now we're talking about a baby. Okay, the truth is, Hitler the baby is just unlucky. It's like, it's a baby who's, for whatever reason, is going to grow up to be Hitler, right? But as a baby, it's just a baby, right? So it's like, the baby is not culpable for becoming the 1-year-old, who becomes the 2-year-old, who becomes the 3-year-old. Like, at what point does Hitler become culpable for being Hitler? I don't think he does. That doesn't mean you don't kill Hitler. At a certain, like, if there's nothing else to do, if you can't lock him up, I am completely in favor of killing Hitler at a certain point. Now, which day you pick in his life is a judgment call, but it's at no point did he make himself, and that's true of everybody else.
That was great. And the last line in your book on Free Will, you say that you are not in control of the storm. You are not lost in it. You are the storm. And I think that's a beautiful note to wrap up the free will topic there.
Yeah.
Last little thing. You've shared that on one level, you can't go wrong if you live a life motivated by love and guided by reason. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that. In your kind of final notes here, your vision for what an awakened humanity looks like. Because I see you as somebody that has such a profound and deep understanding of the human condition, and yet we find ourselves in a time with a lot of problems that can be solved and freedom to be discovered on an individual and collective level. What is your vision for an awakened humanity? And we'll wrap there.
Yeah, I think I would add one piece. I'm not sure I think maybe you can get everything out of love and reason, but there's one piece that I would add that does a lot of work that seems at least conceptually separable, and that's gratitude. I think there's something about gratitude that heals so much that's wrong with us personally, psychologically. It's just like I mean, so like if you push far enough in the direction of gratitude, there's so many psychological and ethical errors you can no longer make, right? Like it almost contains everything we mean by love as well. But I mean, you just recognize that. I mean, for virtually anyone, I mean, unless you're literally the least lucky person who's ever lived, there's just so much to be grateful for. I mean, it's just like there's so much that is good about even a very ordinary, conflicted, difficult life when you compare it to everything else that is possible, right? And this is where like the philosophy of Stoicism is so useful to so many people. I mean, the Stoics often recommend a reflection of just this sort. I mean, you just think about all the terrible things that haven't happened to you, right? And that are happening to somebody else right now, right? And just there are people who would consider all of their prayers answered if they could just trade places with you right now, even when you're in the midst of something that you consider to be genuinely difficult, right? You've got some problem that really is capturing 100% of your attention. It's like it's still so much better than so much of what's possible. And on that, when you recognize that, the more you can see your life in those terms, kindness and compassion, almost by definition, fall out of that. It's like that's synonymous with having compassion for all the people who and all the beyond people, all the people and conscious beings that have it so much worse than you have it, right? And through just pure luck, right? I mean, it's unearned on some level, right? And it's on that basis that you want to be kind to people because you just don't know. One, in some sense, first of all, you know everyone's going to die. You know everyone's going to lose everything they love and everyone close to them, right? Like, no matter how, it's like we're all united in this circumstance of fundamental impermanence and fragility. So, I don't know. It's like we're all moving through life where most of us. I mean, certainly anyone who has the free attention to listen to a conversation like this and find any of this interesting. That's almost synonymous with having escaped some of the worst, variants of suffering on offer, at least for a significant period of time. And, so we're all just. It's like the sun is continually coming out from behind the clouds, and we're enjoying this moment of sunlight, and then it goes behind the clouds again, and there's lots to struggle through, and then we get these moments of sunlight, and we should be so grateful for these moments and for all that we have and all that we don't have to suffer. And the only thing that is safeguarding this project collectively that ensures that even the luckiest among us can cooperate with one another and collaborate in an open-ended way and build, and make the future look better than the past, really the only tool beyond just the goodwill that wants that project to succeed, the love and kindness and gratitude that would grease those gears, is reason. I mean, all we have is a disposition to talk about facts, to care about facts, to be consistent, to be self-aware of our own ignorance and our own capacity for self-deception and wishful thinking and cognitive bias, to meet other people. I mean, we've got this circumstance. We've got 8 billion strangers. More like virtually everyone is no matter how many people you know, virtually everyone is a stranger. And all you can do is reason with them from a basic inclination to cooperate and find some future that's compatible with more and more of us, more of the time, leading better lives, right? And so it's like either we're going to recognize that we're all in principle on the same team in the limit and try to solve some increasingly complex coordination problems and build the tools to do that, and or we're going to fail spectacularly at the attempt to do that. And our failure will, it's totally predictable, our failure will be born of failures of rationality and failures of goodwill, right? I mean, failures of love, failures of kindness, failures of to act in what really is in our own best interest if we could only see it. I mean, the idea that we could ever wind up in a condition that is permanently zero-sum is just a crazy illusion, given the circumstance we're actually in. I mean, given how good life could be if we just got our heads screwed on straight and cooperated without political division and dogmatism and all of these structures that reliably cause conversations to fail. I mean, it just it really doesn't seem wrong to expect something like a utopia if we could only get over our very basic political and apish disinclinations to cooperate with one another. But reason is the only tool for the job, because it's the only algorithm you can run where even if people don't like each other and are emotionally unavailable, they're resisting playing well with others. Because of its universal characteristics, because you can show people, you can show your enemies that they're contradicting themselves, right? It has a capacity to force convergence and really drag people kicking and screaming across the finish line of cooperation, because at bottom, reality has a certain structure. I mean, certain things are true and certain things are false, and certain maps fit the territory better than other maps. And we all, even if we are confused about in the game we're playing, people tend not to like to bump into hard objects in the dark, right? I mean, they want to know where they're going, and so insofar as there are right answers to any questions of importance, reason is the thing that will ensure that we're tracking that. And so apart from people who are completely psychotic and are completely psychopathic, they're just fundamentally unavailable to any kind of cooperative effort. Reason is the thing that is going to, even in the absence of appropriate love and good feeling, is going to align all of our interests. And so we just, I mean, on some level, it's the only game in town for strangers to play.
Just what you shared about how, reason really being the modality in which we can find ourselves to solutions that are necessary in this time, right? But without, empathy and gratitude without reason has no guide, and reason without empathy or gratitude is not alive. It's not fully alive. And this talk and how we've been walking this dance throughout this whole conversation and much of the work that you do of this integrating rational thinking with the spiritual dimensions of life to catch up to a 21st century viewpoint, I think is so needed. And I really see you as a pioneer. So as we're speaking about gratitude, I just want to share some and say thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing yourself in this way. It's been so fulfilling for me. I'm just as much of a joyful participant and listener to this conversation as I am, stewarding it with you. So just thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to how this conversation evolves and continues.
Nice. Well, great to be here. Great to meet you. And keep it up.
Thank you so much. And for everybody that's been tuning in, I have found the Waking Up app extremely profound and powerful. I spent hours and hours on walks listening to different theories and talks, and they have amazing meditations. So I'll leave a link in the description below where you can find that and check that out if you haven't already. They have a free trial. It's amazing. Highly recommend it. Everywhere you can find Sam will be linked in the description as well below. And is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
I don't think so. No, you can find me in fewer and fewer places now. It's just
I noticed that.
It's really just I guess samharris.org and wakingup.com. Those are the 2 points of contact. So
amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. Looking forward to maybe running it back one day. And for everybody that's been tuning into this episode of the Know Thyself podcast, thank you for coming on this journey with us. And